It's a celebration of America's freedom. Welcome to the Mark Scaringi Show. The Mark Scaringi Show is your place for a weekly discussion on making America great again. The important political and legal issues of the day, a celebration of the Constitution, and traditional American values. Mark is a practicing attorney, a former senatorial candidate, a Donald J. Trump-endorsed delegate, and a defender of the Constitution. His goal? To put America first. And now, celebrating America's freedoms, here's attorney Mark Scaringi.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Mark Scaringi Show. This is your place on the dial for our weekly discussion of the important legal and political issues of the day. You're welcome to call in at 717-540-0580, 717-540-0580. You can send me a tweet at Mark Scaringi, and I'll read your tweet on the air. For all of my columns, prior podcasts of the show, and a look at some great merchandise we have, check out the MarkScaringiShow.com website. And today, again, we're broadcasting on Harrisburg 100 Facebook Live, in addition to WHP 580 and iHeartRadio. So if you're on Facebook, you can comment live. This week in the news, Hillary Clinton lost her security clearance. Kanye West visited the White House and had a very interesting, informative meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office. And Democrats stepped up their calls for violence against Republicans. Well, yesterday it was reported that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has relinquished her security clearance over her handling of sensitive information stored on a private email server. Cheryl Mills, her former top aide, along with 4 additional individuals very close to Hillary Clinton, no longer have their security clearance either. Clinton's access to secret confidential information held within our government's national security apparatus expired at the end of August, while Clinton's top aides had their clearances terminated September 20th. My first thought is it's obvious that Clinton relinquished her security clearance because she knew it would be revoked if she didn't. So to save the embarrassment of having it revoked, she relinquished it. Her top aides had theirs revoked. My second thought is, why now? Why was Hillary Clinton's clearance not revoked in the summer and fall of 2016 when then FBI Director James Comey declared Hillary was grossly negligent in handling our nation's top secrets? That should have been the time that Hillary Clinton's security clearance was revoked. But do you think President Obama, who was in office at the time, would have done something like that during Hillary's campaign to succeed him in the Oval Office? He would never have done such a thing because it would have obviously harmed seriously Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. But that would have been the right thing to do to protect our nation's secrets from Hillary Clinton, who proved herself to be criminally negligent in handling them and potentially exposing them to our foreign adversaries. But President Obama, in an effort to protect Hillary's campaign for the presidency, chose not to revoke Hillary Clinton's security clearance at that time. Thus, further proof that the Obama administration, from the Oval Office itself to the heads of the Department of Justice, FBI, and the national security agencies, were pulling out all of the stops to destroy the Trump campaign and to do everything in their power to ensure that Hillary Clinton wins. And that's one more example of the deep state and their efforts to derail the Trump campaign. And my third thought about this is, why has it taken the Trump administration so long to revoke Hillary Clinton's security clearance? Trump took office nearly 2 years ago, and one would think this is something he would have done early in his administration. But interestingly, the revocation of the security clearance, as I understand it, in the case of Hillary Clinton's former top aides, came from the Senate Intelligence Committee. So I'll have to look in a little further to see who has the power to revoke security clearances from former employees of the federal government. We know that the administration has revoked some, And I guess now the Congress has the right to do so as well. But let me know what you think. Call in 717-540-0580. What do you think about the decision to revoke the security clearance of several former top aides of Hillary Clinton, and Hillary's own decision not to attempt to renew her security clearance and instead let it lapse? Do you think that was a tactical decision made by the former Secretary of State? Do you think she had a chance of getting her security clearance renewed under the Trump administration? Call in 717-540-0580, 717-540-0580. Now, also in the news this week is the increased violence, physical and rhetorical, against Republicans across the country, uttered by Democrats, left-wing groups known as Antifa and others. Now, Antifa, as we've discussed in prior shows, is a domestic terrorist organization. These are the guys and gals whose members, they don those protective masks to protect their anonymity as they prepare to do violence in their organized disruptions of civil society. And they will protest and they will disrupt anyone they think opposes their liberal, left-wing, really communist, anarchist agenda. This week, Antifa vandalized the Metropolitan Club in Manhattan, which was a beautiful old building in the city where my wife and I stayed one night. It's a treasure, an historical treasure there in New York City, but it was vandalized, I think, just earlier last week by Antifa because it was hosting Gavin McInnes, a conservative political pundit. So Antifa decided to show up, break the windows, desecrate the doorways, and they spray painted their ominous letter, that capital A in the kind of circular symbol, reminiscent of kind of a cross between the hammer and the sickle and the swastika. That's the symbol of the left-wing communist anarchist group Antifa. And they left a chilling note stating, "Our attack is merely beginning. We are not passive. We are not civil. We will not apologize." And let's focus on that phrase, "we're not civil. We will not apologize." And that's their explanation or their justification for committing acts of violence against this building. But let's open up the phone lines and we'll take some calls. We'll hear from our listeners. We have William from Lancaster. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show.
Hi.
Go right ahead.
Mark. Hi, this is William in Lancaster. I heard some of your comments on the security clearances being removed and revoked for others, but my question goes to, why does any former federal official need to have a security clearance if they're not in their position anymore? I could maybe understand it with a former president, but if Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and Senator, why would she even be accessible to that type of sensitive information and then during a campaign? So that would be my question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, William from Lancaster. Thank you. Thanks for calling in. And I think you raise a very good point. And here's my take on that. And here's an angle to consider. President Trump, when he was a candidate, ran on one of his positions was exposing the fundamental flaws and weaknesses of the national security state, if you will, of the Obama administration. And really of the George W. Bush administration as well, and all of their failures, reaching all the way back to President George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq, that was based on fundamentally flawed security and advice from our national security apparatus and the individuals at the highest levels. The intelligence was wrong. You can go to Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State and her abysmal failure to understand exactly what was happening in Benghazi. As Susan Rice essentially misleading the American people as to what the real cause of that attack was. I mean, there was so much evidence that the intelligence that was utilized by the Obama administration was flawed, and that the advice and the opinions and the guidance and the leadership shown by the highest members of the Obama administration and the national security agencies was fundamentally flawed and wrong. So why would any incoming president want to hear from anyone in the previous administrations when they were proven to be so wrong time and time again about national security interests confronting our country? We'll talk more about that when we return from this brief commercial break. You're listening to The Mark Scaringi Show.
Now, more of Mark Scaringi on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to The Mark Scaringi Show. This is your place on the dial where we put America first. We're talking about the important political and legal issues of the day. And today's topic, we're talking about the loss of the security clearance held by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and 4 or 5 of her top aides. We're also talking about increased calls for violence and civil disorder and civil unrest from many members of the Democratic Party and actual acts of violence from the left-wing terrorist group Tifa. And we had a call from William from Lancaster County who asks the poignant question: why do these former security officials, from Hillary Clinton to Cheryl Mills to others, why do they maintain their security clearance after they leave office, after they leave employment with the federal government? And the purported answer is that they provide advice to the new administration. But my response to that is Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, the heads of the national security agencies under Obama did a terrible job, a deplorable job, if you will, to quote Hillary Clinton. They were wrong time and time again. Why would anyone listen to anything those people have to say about foreign policy or national security? They were using the national security apparatus of the United States government to spy on their opponent, their political opponent, their domestic political opponent, Donald Trump. Those people should have had their security clearances revoked when Barack Obama was still in office, and he was a part of it, so of course he's not going to do that. But when Trump took office, he should have revoked all of their security clearances and gotten rid of all of those people. Their advice can only harm our country. We're also talking about increased calls for violence and civil disorder by prominent members of the Democratic Party and the left, actual violent attacks by Antifa. In recent weeks, United States Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, she described Republican policies as rooted in evil. So Republican policies are evil. So what do you do when confronted by evil? Some unhinged individuals may act out with violence against what their leaders are referring to and characterizing as evil. And that's why Democrat leaders' rhetoric is so dangerous. United States Senator Rand Paul recently revealed that James Hodgkinson, now remember James Hodgkinson was that left-wing mass attempted murderer who went onto that baseball field in Virginia where Republican congressmen were practicing, and he used his semi-automatic rifle to try to kill as many Republican politicians as he could. And Rand Paul just recently revealed that Hodgkinson was screaming as he was shooting, trying to kill Republican congressmen. This is for health care. So Hodgkinson was trying to kill Republican politicians because he opposed their position on health care. And when Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York describes the Republican policy as evil, you can see how an unhinged left-winger like James Hodgkinson can carry that forward from rhetoric into action. Remember, Hodgkinson had a list of Republican lawmakers in his pocket whom he was going to kill because they supported the repeal of Obamacare. Now, this week, Hillary Clinton said civility was not possible with Republicans. She said in an interview with CNN, You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and or the Senate, that's when civility can start again. But until then, the only thing that the Republicans seem to recognize and respect is strength. Wow, that Hillary sounds like a dictator. She's saying the only thing her political opponents will recognize is respect and strength. I can almost see her clenching her fist. That is not civil discourse, and in fact, she's eschewing civil discourse. She's rejecting it. She's saying she's going to be uncivil when engaging her political opponents. Well, what is the opposite of civil? If you are uncivil, what kind of actions can you contemplate and execute? I would argue that could be broadly defined as acts of violence. United States District Court Judge D. Drell just recently sentenced Sohil Rana, 50, of Lafayette, Louisiana, to 30 months in prison and 2 years of supervised release after he completes his sentence. The Justice Department announced Wednesday. Now, prosecutors say Rana called a congressman's district office in July of 2017, threatening to kill the congressman's career and end his life, to kill him. This was a death threat made by someone who opposed the political positions of a Republican congressman. So the rhetoric used by Hillary Clinton saying, don't be civil anymore, be uncivil, and Kristen Gillibrand, and there's a whole long list of it, has real ramifications in real life. Former Attorney General Eric Holder, this is Barack Obama's Attorney General, said of the Republican Party, when they go low, we kick them. We kick them. A kick is physical violence. He said this in a little campaign rally organization meeting with Democrats. Where he's supporting some Democratic gubernatorial candidate, and apparently he didn't realize he was being video recorded when he gave this little speech. Now, when the video was released, Holder tried to walk it back, saying, when I say kick them, I don't mean to do anything appropriate. We don't do anything illegal, Holder said. Really? But Holder says we got to be tough, and we have to fight for the very things that civil rights leaders, John Lewis, Martin Luther King Jr., Whitney Young, all those folks gave us. Well, that's not even a very effective walk back by the former Attorney General, by Barack Obama's former Attorney General. I mean, how do you kick someone non-violently? Is Eric Holder advocating a very mild kick, a light kick, more of a tap, as opposed to like a karate chop style kick? This is Eric Holder, the former head of the Justice Department, the chief legal officer of the United States of America, advocating violence. We kick them, he said. I've never heard of a rhetorical kick, but apparently Holder's trying to say it's a rhetorical kick. Republicans are getting more and more afraid of left-wing and Democratic calls for political violence. United States Senator Rand Paul's wife, Kelly, recently said, I've never been like this in my whole life. We used to never lock our doors, and now that has changed. We've updated all of our security systems at home. I sleep with a loaded gun by my bed. This is the state of politics in America today. And it started with the Democratic resistance to Donald Trump's ascendancy to the presidency. Remember, right after Trump's election, the left called not for loyal opposition. They called for resistance. And think about that word resistance. Have we used that word in the lexicon of U.S. political history? No. We've never used the word resistance. Resistance is a revolutionary term It is a term used by left-wing, radical, extreme groups, and those words are being uttered by the highest-ranking members of the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton said that she has joined the resistance. Remember, days after that, James Hodgkinson tried to kill as many Republican lawmakers as he could. Bernie Sanders urged his followers to act in an unprecedented way, to go big and to fight back in every way. Hillary Clinton said the Republican Party is the death party whose health plan will kill people. I mean, this is outrageous rhetoric emanating from the highest members of the Democratic Party that is inciting violence against Republicans and needs to be stopped. We'll talk more about this after I return from this brief commercial break. You're listening to The Mark Scaringi Show.
Let's get back to The Mark Scaringi Show on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to The Mark Scaringi Show. This is your place on the dial where we put America first. We talk about the important political and legal issues of the day. Today we're talking about increasing calls from the Democratic Party leaders for uncivil behavior among Democrats. Hillary Clinton is eschewing civility. She's taking the gloves off, and she's encouraging Democrats to be uncivil. We're not sure exactly what she means by that, but it can certainly lead some deranged members of the left wing to use violence to carry out Hillary Clinton's admonition and encouragement that Democrats forget civility and start using any means necessary to retake political power and political control. Do you think she's right? I'm interested to know what my listeners think. Do you think Hillary Clinton is right? Do you think Democrats should stop being civil, should become uncivil, put civility aside and use, I guess, uncivil tactics to reclaim political power? And then when they resume power, then Hillary Clinton says Democrats can be civil again. What do you think? Call in 717-540-0580. Do you agree with Barack Obama's former Attorney General Eric Holder? Do you believe that Democrats should start kicking Republicans in their efforts to regain political power? Do you think? Do you agree with Eric Holder? Do you think it's right and okay for Democrats to kick Republicans? I'm interested to know what you think. Call in 717-540-0580. Hillary Clinton has called the Republican Party the death party whose health plan will kill people. Remember, United States Senator Bob Casey, our senator here in Pennsylvania, said the Republican health care plan will hurt people. Republicans are coming for you. I guess, according to Bob Casey, we Republicans are coming to get people. Hillary Clinton says our health plan is going to kill them. So if you put two and two together, we Republicans, according to Hillary Clinton and Bob Casey, are coming with our health plan to kill people. And Bob Casey says we must be stopped. Elizabeth Warren, Democratic senator from Massachusetts, urged her followers to act in an unprecedented way, to stand up and fight back in every way that you can, including in uncivil ways. And these are dangerous remarks. Even former First Lady Michelle Obama has apparently slapped down Eric Holder for his uncivil remarks, for Holder's encouragement of violence. Michelle Obama, to her credit, has admonished Eric Holder for his advocacy of violence against Republicans. Well, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll take some calls. We have Randy from Annville. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show. What do you think about these calls by Democratic leaders for violence?
Hi, Mark. Well, I think a lot of it takes away the will of the American people in governing. In other words, if the Democrats really wanted to get back into power, then they would want to put forth a vision that the American people can get behind, much like Donald Trump did. But for them to try to look at power as something that is theirs for the taking, that completely disrespects the American electorate.
Oh, I think you're exactly right. The Democrats, they're really not running on any policy agenda. They're just demeaning and denigrating Republicans, calling them the party of death, talking about how the Republicans' policies will kill people. This is all they have to run on, and it's almost like they are a spoiled, rotten child who has had their toys taken away from them, and now they're going to bang their fists and they're going to use force to get those toys to be returned to them.
Well, it seems clear to me that they don't want to put forth a vision. They don't think they need to. That's not their tactical. They want to try to shame people through social media. They want to try to program people through the mainstream media rather than putting out a vision that people can get behind. And I think a lot of that has to do with their attitude that they know better, that we can't govern ourselves. We don't know enough. They're much smarter. They have a larger view, and it's just all BS. It really does come down to the voters have a say, and if you want the voters to put you in power as their servant, then you put forth a vision that they can get behind, and that's all I see.
Well said, Rennie from Annville. Thank you for the call, and thank you for your point of view. I think you're exactly right, and I want to talk a little bit more about what you're talking about, the Democratic tactic of shaming, and I want to get a little more into that in a second. But first, I want to talk about Don Lemon, the talk show host on CNN, who is encouraging Antifa and encouraging these left-wing groups. These groups that went down to the United States Capitol and were clawing at the doors in the United States Senate to try to disrupt and stop the swearing in of Judge Brett Kavanaugh as the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. We've seen so much uncivil behavior from Democrats and from the left, but Don Lemon, who is one of their top cheerleaders, is saying that he is denouncing any guest who appears on his program and refers to these left-wing mobs as mobs. The CNN talk show hosts are taking away the right or ability of their guests to use the word mob to describe any group of people who oppose Republicans. This is a remarkable turn of events. It is George Orwell's 1984 has come to roost right in the studios of CNN. On Tuesday, Don Lemon declared that mobs have a constitutional right to do what? Well, in my view, it's to harass and intimidate GOP lawmakers, to run them out of restaurants. That's what Lemon was talking about. Lemon was saying that's your right as an American to object. It's covered in the First Amendment. It's like the first one, he says, and he was literally screaming at his guests for using the word mob to describe these tactics by liberals to throw Sarah Huckabee Sanders out of that restaurant in Virginia, to surround and swarm Ted Cruz and his wife and loudly chant denouncing Ted Cruz while he's trying to have dinner with his wife at a restaurant. That is mob. That's mob behavior. You don't have the right to walk into a restaurant and disturb the peace. That's a violation of the law. So Don Lemon is wrong on constitutional law. You don't have a right to enter a private property, a restaurant, and disrupt it and scream and chant and carry on. The First Amendment, or the First Amendment free speech right clause, or the right to assemble clause of the First Amendment does not protect you, does not give you a right to essentially disrupt a restaurant. And you can be removed, and those disruptors were removed. They were not exercising any First Amendment right. So Don Lemon is absolutely wrong on constitutional law. He screamed, in the Constitution, you can protest whenever and wherever you want. It doesn't tell you that you can't do it in a restaurant, that you can't do it on a football field. It doesn't tell you that you can't do it on cable news. You can do it wherever you want. Interestingly, he uttered that phrase after stopping one of his guests from using the word mob. So the guest doesn't have the free speech right to use mob on the CNN talk show hosted by Don Lemon, but a group of angry people have the right to enter a restaurant, surround, encircle, and scream and chant and denounce a man who's trying to enjoy his dinner. This is the view of the First Amendment by CNN and many other liberal talk show hosts. That is absolutely not what the First Amendment protects. CNN's Brooke Baldwin, she mocked both of her guests as they described the left-wing activist who chased Ted Cruz and his wife out of that restaurant, described them as a mob. Brooke Baldwin admonished them and wouldn't let them use those words. I mean, it is a remarkable thing. And to get back to what the previous caller was, Randy from Anvil was talking about, Democrats' tactics in this election cycle are simply to shame Republicans. Look what they did to Kanye. My Lord, it's horrible what liberals did to Kanye and how they're treating him. Meghan McCain and the women on The View labeled Kanye West as mentally disabled for going to the Oval Office and having a talk with President Trump. And Kanye West was speaking and having a good time and interacting with the president, interacting with the media, articulating his views on political issues of the day. And the liberals say, oh, well, he's mentally disabled. Why? Because he's a black man supporting the Trump agenda. So he must be mentally disabled, according to our friends on the left. We'll talk more about this when we return from this brief commercial break. You're listening to The Mark Scaringi Show.
Now back to The Mark Scaringi Show on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to The Mark Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. Call in 717-540-0580, 717-540-0580. We're talking about members of the highest levels of the Democratic Party calling for civil unrest, disruptions, disorder, and even violence. And we're also taking comments from Harrisburg Facebook Live, Harrisburg 100 Facebook Live. One comment from PA Politics: Antifa is harassing local citizens in Harrisburg whose political views they disagree with and are suggestive of violence. Certainly true, and I'll tell you my story at some other time about when I was giving a press conference in New York and how I was disrupted by Black Lives Matter and Antifa and physically assaulted. It's an interesting story. When we have time, we'll tell that. But we now, we had a caller, Randall from Lebanon, who was talking about really the only campaign position or agenda that the Democrats are utilizing in these elections is to shame Republicans. And as evidence of that, we have Kanye West, a black American who is a hip-hop artist, among other things. He's an entrepreneur, a very accomplished man, and he happens to like President Trump. And he went to the Oval Office to meet with the president, had an entertaining and interesting discussion and soliloquy / discussion in the Oval Office. And of course, he is now being shamed and degraded and defamed by liberals, by talk show hosts, the ladies at The View, calling him mentally disabled. Jimmy Kimmel, who has a late night show on one of the major networks, calling Kanye an irrational madman. And even worse, CNN, Don Lemon, the liberal talk show host on CNN, he allowed commentators Bakari Sellers and Tara Setmayer to insult Kanye's intelligence, repeatedly referring to him as a Negro. Setmayer called West an attention whore and a token Negro. And Sellers said, Kanye West is what happens when Negroes don't read. I mean, this is deplorable, racist stuff being uttered right on CNN and being channeled into our homes and television screens across the country. This is deplorable treatment by liberal commentators on CNN of a black man who happens to like President Trump. And CNN's Don Lemon made it even worse. He said what I saw was a minstrel show today. Him, meaning Kanye, in front of all of these white people, mostly white people, embarrassing himself and embarrassing Americans and mostly African Americans. I mean, this is terrible stuff from our friends on the left wing, these liberal talk show hosts and others, saying the most horrible, heinous things about Kanye West, a black man who happens to like Donald Trump. So is it true, if you are a black American and you like Donald Trump's policies, are you a madman? Are you mentally disabled? Are you deranged? Are you simply an actor in a minstrel show? Are you, as the liberal commentators on CNN say, are you a token Negro? So I'm interested to hear what my listeners think. Call in 717-540-0580 and let me know your thoughts. We have Dan from Hummelstown. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show. Dan from Hummelstown, you're on the Mark Scaringi Show. Well, maybe we lost Dan from Hummelstown, but we have, let's see, Fred from York. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good, Fred. How are you?
Great. I could be wrong, but when you incite a riot, when you incite violence against people, that, I think, is against the law. If you're in a movie theater and you holler fire, you can be held responsible for anybody that gets injured. So politicians or regular people who are up inciting for people to go out and get against people that are Republicans, it's stifling your right to voice your opinion. And if these people get hurt, why aren't these people then who are inciting this held accountable?
Oh, I think you're exactly right. Thank you, Fred from York, for calling. Appreciate your statement. It is illegal to incite riots, to incite violence, and it very well could be construed from some of the comments that are being made by the highest members of the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton's call to resist, Hillary Clinton's call to eschew civility and be uncivil. What does uncivil mean? Does it mean don't follow the law? Don't follow civil order? Don't follow the civil rule? What is Hillary getting at in her calls to resist?
Also, it can be a simple fix, too, if they make it against the law, to cover your face and then go commit these horrendous acts. Why are these people being left do it while the police are told, stand back, don't do anything? This is crazy. And you know, if this is the kind of governance we want, and you go and vote for people that are advocating this, then shame on you. You deserve to get what you get, through this, because the violence can erupt, and you may be a Democrat, you may be a Republican, you could still get hurt from it. And this is not the way we've done all these years. We haven't built a country who has this kind of thing. You're talking dictatorships, and we don't have that.
Yeah, and that's why I think Hillary's statements are so troubling to me, that she will eschew civility now in order for the Democrats to retake power, and then she says we'll be civil again. She says Republicans only understand and respect strength. That is that's the way dictators talk, and that's a scary thing to hear from Hillary Clinton. And let's open up the phone booth, and we'll take some additional calls. We have Dennis from Harrisburg. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show.
Hey, Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dennis.
I just a couple quick points. I watched that Kanye West, when he was at the Oval Office. I thought it was great. He's his own man, and I admire him. And they keep talking about they calling him all these names, a Negro but Jimmy Brown was there too. They don't talk about that. he wasn't the only black man there. Jimmy Brown, the football player, he was there. There were a lot of other people there at that, and they don't talk about. They don't talk about the time that Obama had the Obama had Black Lives Matter. Remember at White House after they had been chanting death to the police, and I forget how they said it, fry 'em like bacon or something. And he thought that was great. He had them at the White House. Nobody ever talks about that. Trouble with the Democrats is they're hypocrites. And the people who should be ashamed of themselves are the people you mentioned. I was glad you mentioned some of the things that they said, because I saw that too on CNN. I don't normally watch CNN, but I was watching Fox News, and they were, Hannity was showing what they said, and that's just outrageous.
Yeah, I think, Dennis, thanks for calling. Appreciate that. I think you're right. There is a big double standard that Barack Obama is allowed to behave in the manner in which he did, and invite all kinds of activists and individuals into the Oval Office, some of whom espoused extreme positions from the left wing. And, of course, there's the whole history of how he got his start in politics, socializing with and receiving political support from avowed domestic terrorists. There's a whole history of that, and almost a library full of books and research on the domestic terrorists who helped give Barack Obama his start. But I tell you, I just feel so sorry for Kanye West. I don't know a whole lot about him. I do. The first time I was introduced to him was when he stormed the stage and took some trophy away from Taylor Swift, and I thought that was a terrible act by Kanye West, and that was entirely disrespectful. And it was uncivil, as Hillary Clinton is now advocating that it be done against Republicans. But that's the first time I really became aware of Kanye West, and now I see him in the Oval Office, and the guy's just trying to he's just trying to talk to the president, and he's trying to tell the president what his thoughts are on important policy issues, or even if it's not even important policy issues, even if he's just kind of shooting the breeze with the president. He has a friendship with the president. He supports the president's policies and agenda, and he is just eviscerated by the left wing and talk show hosts, anchors of serious news programs on CNN and MSNBC are using horrible racial epithets to denigrate and condemn Kanye West simply for calling into question his mental state and his mental stability for being a black man who supports a white president. We're not in a good state in this country right now when you can't even use words like mob to describe actual mobs. When the former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton is saying, forget civility, throw civility aside, do whatever it takes by any means necessary to retake power from the Republicans so that Democrats can once again have control of the political apparatus of our country. Things are not looking good from that perspective. And Democrats are really getting into an area where it's going to be fraught with more violence. That's about all the time we have today on the Mark Scaringi Show. I want to thank you for listening. Tune in, same time, same place, right here on WHP 580 and iHeartRadio and Harrisburg Facebook 100 Live.